everyone, this little video is the lecture that goes along with task 12, and we're going to be talking about editing. So editing is basically rewriting, improving any of your writing. You know, when we write stuff, it's very uncommon that you get it 100% perfect the first time. So going back and having a look at things and making them better, improving them, editing is always a really good skill to practice. So I'm going to quickly talk about some types of editing, and by that I mean like what things can you change. So you could improve a whole bunch of things. One of them is content, right? So that's what you're actually saying in whatever you're writing. So if you missed information or included incorrect information, editing can fix this. You go back and you say, oh, I forgot to put that in. You put it in there, or this isn't quite right, this is the wrong information. You can go back and correct that. So editing for content. The second thing is for style. If you are being too informal or too formal, or if you're not being neutral, as we should be with technical writing, editing can fix this, right? Remember, with editing, you want to, or sorry, with technical writing, you want to be just very factual and neutral. You don't want to put a lot of emotion into it. You want to avoid kind of, I call it the storytelling style, like, okay, next we take our heat pump and we put it into the air handler, or something like that, right? So you want to be neutral, not too informal. So what we're really going to take a look at today is what I call editing for writing skills. So if you've made mistakes in sentence structure, vocabulary, spelling, editing can go back and fix that, okay? So that's the different types of editing that we can do, and you'll be probably getting comments on all three of these as you do your editing of that draft. So here are some ways that you can get ideas for what to edit. One of them is to just look yourself, okay, from yourself. So after you write something, leave it alone for a while, right? Come back after an hour, the next day, or whatever, and look at it, really looking for mistakes, for things that you can improve, right? So you can edit yourself. You can get ideas from other people, right? You can get a friend or a colleague to look at it. So giving your work to another person helps you to see how well other people understand your words. If that friend or that colleague or that family member says, I'm not sure what you mean here, then you know that it needs to be edited, it needs to be improved. So what's going to happen for your assignments is you're going to get some ideas from me, from the teacher. Sometimes, a professional person, someone who is a writer, these people will easily spot errors in content, style, and writing skills and can tell you what to improve. So what we're going to do is take a look mostly at those writing skills with this little video. When you do your second part of your draft assignment, I'll be writing all kinds of comments. Some of them might be about writing skills, some of them might be about content, some of them might be about style. But those ones about content and style, I find people understand what I mean. Like if I say you are missing this part here, or you're not exactly, you're missing step number 3 in the operations or something, people usually know what I mean. But with writing skills, spelling and grammar and that kind of thing, sometimes people need a little help to see what I mean. So that's what this little lecture and task 12 is going to be all about. Before we get started, though, we need to talk about some basic stuff. Okay, we're going to look at editing for grammar and sentence structure, so we need to be clear on some basic terms. We did go over these in class, but it was some time ago, so I'm going to have a quick little review of, two really basic terms that we're going to be using today. So I want to ask you, what goes in sentences? What are two things that need to go in every sentence in English? They are a subject, that person that does an action, or the thing that does that action, and the verb, which is the action itself. So I'll ask a little question here. What subjects and verbs are in these sentences? Let me show 3 simple sentences. Thermal heat pumps save money. Bamboo flooring looks nice. and wind turbines generate electricity. So stop the video for a little second and see if you can identify what are the subjects and the verbs, and then I'll reveal it in a second. So all the ones in blue and with the little circles are the subjects: thermal heat pumps, bamboo flooring, wind turbines. You'll see sometimes a subject is more than one word. Sometimes it's just a word, like Joe. Joe likes pizza. Joe is the subject, right? And verbs, they're in red with the little triangles. Save, looks, generate. Those are all examples of verbs. Sometimes, though, identifying subjects and verbs can be a little bit tricky. So I'm going to show you some unusual ones. And again, stop the video and decide which is the subjects and which are the verbs in these sentences. So we've got reading about technology helps you learn, and reading about technology is fun. So the first thing I'll point out is that sometimes the doer is not an actual person or a thing. Sometimes the doer is an activity. So in this case, reading about technology. It's a thing that you do, but it's the subject. It's the thing that I'm talking about in the sentence. And helps is the verb in that case. Okay? Sometimes the subject, even though it's an action, it's not really any kind of movement, right? Existing is an action. So reading about technology is, that's the verb in that case, right? Okay, so those are those two ideas, those two terms that I want to talk about. So let's move on to some actual different types of, what I want to point out is common mistakes in writing that I see my students do, and showing you how to be aware of them and how to fix them if they come up in your work. So have a look at these two sentences. There were too many accidents on the job site, although the safety guidelines were followed. Do they look right or not? So the first one is fine. There were too many accidents on the job site. But if you look at this sentence on its own, although the safety guidelines were followed, it is incomplete, right? That word although needs more information from it. So this type of incomplete sentence is called a fragment, and it comes up when you use a word like although or because or in spite of. These are words that show that you have two ideas, right? If you say although or but or however, there's two sides to the story, right? So a fragment is missing one of those two sides, so there's a problem there. And a symbol that I use on my students' work to show that there's a fragment is just that abbreviation, F-R-A-G, frag. So that shows that you've got a fragment there. So how do we fix them? One way is to join them into one sentence. So previously we had on the job site period and started a new sentence. Just run that together into one sentence. Okay. Another way is to add some information to that sentence that's missing something. So here we have, there were too many accidents on the job site. Although the safety guidelines were followed, the crew members continued to injure themselves. So there's still two pieces of information in that sentence with although. So that is sentence fragments. Let me give you another sentence to evaluate. The foreman put in a report about all the accidents. The project supervisor read it. Okay, so have a look at that sentence. This is kind of the opposite of the fragment. In this case, there's too much information in that sentence. What we've done is we've started a new idea, but we haven't done it correctly. Okay? So this type of sentence is called a run-on, because you've got too much information. It's running on and on and on. So what is the real problem here? Remember subjects and verbs? If you introduce a new idea with a new subject and verb, you can't do it with only a comma. I'm going to go back to that example just for a second. The foreman put in a report about all the accidents. We've got foreman as the subject and put in as a verb, right? Then we've got a new subject, a project supervisor, and a new verb, read it. So just a comma is not enough to join those together, okay? So a symbol that I use to show a run-on, it's just that little slash symbol. That's to show that here are actually two ideas that are separate. So how do we fix them? One of them is to just use a simple connector, something like and or but or. This lets the reader know, I'm going to give you some different information now. Or you can just separate them into actually two separate sentences because they're two sets of subjects and verbs. Okay, so that's how we fix run-on sentences. Let me give you another situation. There is something wrong. Can you tell me what's wrong here? So in that first sentence, it's not really, sorry, in the final sentence, it's not clear, it's unclear what he and it are. Is he the supervisor or the foreman? Is it the report or the meeting? It's unclear which of those are being referred to. So words like he and she and it, they're called pronouns. So this is a pronoun error. Okay? Sometimes it's not clear who or what you mean when you use he, she, or it. Sometimes it is. If you say, I ate a pizza, it was good, it could only be the pizza that I'm talking about. But sometimes it's not quite clear. So showing a pronoun error, if I see a pronoun error in your work, I'll use that abbreviation PRO. Okay? So how do we fix them? Make it clear. Use, instead of the pronoun, use the actual name of the thing. So here, I meant to say the foreman and the meeting. So the supervisor read the report and had a meeting with the foreman. The foreman took the meeting seriously. Now it's clear who I'm talking about and what it is. Okay? Here's another one. The supervisor read the report and had a meeting with the foreman. The supervisor took it all, meaning the meeting, the report, the whole situation. The supervisor took it all seriously. So there it's clear what you wanted to say. Okay? What have we got next here? Okay, here we've got some mistakes. Next day, the new policies were discussed by a group of specialists. This type of mistake, it's not too common with people whose first language is English, but for those of you international students, this is usually a really common problem. So see if you guys can spot that mistake. This is an article error. So the thing that you have to watch out for is whenever you have a noun, so that's a person, a place, a thing, you need to decide if it has an article. In lots of languages, every noun has an article. In some languages, you don't use articles at all. And in English, some of the rules for using articles can be a little bit confusing. So I'm going to talk about really briefly. I'm not going to go into a lot of details now. But we've got a noun here right at the beginning, next day. Right? A day is it's a thing, right? It's not a thing you can hold, but it's an idea, it's a thing. Policies, new policies. This is another thing, and group of specialists. So all of those, you need to decide, does it need an a or an an or a the? Okay? So, as I said, there are some complicated rules with articles. The basic ideas, though, are you use a or an for general things. Okay? Or if we're talking about something for the first time. So, for example, yesterday I saw a cat. Right? I'm telling you about the cat just for the first time. You use the for specific things like the moon, the sun. There's only one of them. Or after the first time you talk about something. So if I say, yesterday I saw a cat, the cat was black. Okay, you use a for the first time and the for the second one. And the symbol that I use to show article errors is that little @ symbol that we use for email addresses, because it looks like an A as an R or an or something. So let's take a look at that mistake from the last one. There are actually 3 article mistakes there. Okay, the next day, new policies were discussed, because they're new policies in general. Okay, we're not giving specific policies yet. By a group of specialists. Again, the first time that I'm mentioning that group. Right? If I went on to give more information like this, the group told everyone about the new policies after their meeting, because now it's specific group that I'm talking about and specific policies. Right? So that's fixing article errors. I think I just have one more to look at. Look for any odd words here. The specialists came up with a docket of new strategics to make the job site safer. Here we've got vocabulary errors. Okay, so something to watch out for. Sometimes people find synonyms with their paraphrasing or something, but you've got to be careful. Not all synonyms, because they can have the same meaning in some situations, they don't always in all situations. And you want to use words that are more common, that everyday people are going to understand, instead of docket, right? It's kind of an odd word. And we'll take a look at in a minute about what we could replace it for. So be careful of using synonyms found online, and make sure you use the correct word forms. I'm going to explain what I mean by forms. Most words have different forms of the same thing. So strategy or strategies is the noun form. It's the thing, right? But strategize, it's related. It's what you do when you're making strategies. You strategize. And strategic. You know, if you describe an action as very strategic, it means, there's some strategy behind it. Okay? And a symbol to show vocabulary errors that I use is just that abbreviation VO. So how do you correct them? Well, that might take a little bit of work. Just got to make sure that you've got the right word. Search for a word that makes more sense. Again, maybe show it to someone, get some input from another person. So here's how we can fix that last sentence. The specialists came up with a list, not a docket in this case, a list of new strategies to make the job site safer. All right, so those are the main errors that I find. There are some other common ones. I'll just mention them. Spelling errors. The tip for that one, if you're typing, if you're using Word or Pages or whatever it is, there should be a spell checker that you can turn on, and it will warn you when you've got a spelling mistake, right? It won't catch all mistakes, but it will catch a lot of them, so that's something to use. And a symbol that I use for spelling errors is SP. Another common one is just missing words, and that can happen, just because it's a mistake when you're typing or lots of different reasons. And I use like a little symbol like this to try to show, it's kind of like an arrow, I suppose, to show that there's a word missing in that case, right? Okay, so here is what I want you to do with task 12 to practice this idea. I want you to read a technical summary of the geothermal heat pump systems, and it's got mistakes in it. I purposely put some mistakes in there, but I've marked the mistakes with symbols. This is what will happen when I take a look at your draft. I'm going to put some of those symbols on it. I'm going to put some comments, and then you're going to correct those mistakes. So task 12 is practice for that. So you're going to need to either copy or retype the summary. I have included a Word version of the technical summary because that's the program that I use. So if you don't use Word, if you have a suggestion for me to how to get you that the summary itself, you can just copy and paste and correct the mistakes. I will do that, but otherwise I only know how to use Word. So you might have to actually retype the whole thing, unfortunately. I know that's a little annoying, but it's not really going to take you that long. So you copy or retype the summary, and then you correct the mistakes, and then you submit, please, only a Word or a PDF on Blackboard. Once again, guys, I'm really going to ask you to submit things on Blackboard. If you submit it by email, there's so many things that could go wrong because I've got 100 students from all of my classes that I've got to keep track of. So sending stuff by email, it's probably going to get lost. You're going to have to remind me, and I'll say, oh, sorry I did that. But, if you can, please do it on Blackboard just to make things a little bit easier. I think that's all I have for the PowerPoint. I'm just going to, it's due this week. Friday, again, if you're a day late or something, it's really not a big problem. Try to get this one done this week. We've only got these last final assignments done. We've got a couple of weeks to do them. So, go at your own pace, whatever you find, but I would say get this one done first before you do that final draft, because this is to help you with the draft and get used to those symbols, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly take us to the assignment task 12 itself, just so you can see what it looks like. Okay, so here it is. Okay, so here it is, task 12, make corrections based on the teacher's feedback. So I've got a little chart at the beginning with, again, those symbols and their meaning so that you can remember that. Okay, now it says please start correcting from this point. And here you'll see that I've written directly on it and then I've scanned it. So here we've got, you know, that little missing word symbol, that little article problem. Here I've written exactly what the problem is, right? So take a look at that, and I think there's 12 or 13 mistakes. I can't remember exactly at the moment, but you'll see all of those mistakes. You retype that, or if you got the Word version, you can just copy and paste. It's got the same mistakes in it. You can just copy and paste and then correct that. All right, guys. That's it for now. I'm going to post this.